Good morning, and welcome to another edition of 10 with Tom. We're taking a slight departure from the word for you today, because I just want to share with you a story, and I want to say thank you. We returned a couple of weeks ago from Operation Christmas Child in Charlotte, and what a journey that has been through the years. You know, it started for me back in 1995. I was sitting at my desk at First Presbyterian Church in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and a lady by the name of Carol Fryery, who was a member of the church, her daughter was in the youth group, stopped in after a women's Bible study, and she handed me a brochure. And she said, "Do you know anything about this project?" And it was a brochure for Operation Christmas Child. This was in November of 1995. I had never heard of Operation Christmas Child, but I said I'd look into it. And she said, "Well, I just thought that this might be something that the youth would enjoy doing, and we're going to do it as a ladies group, and let's see how many boxes we can collect." And so I read the information about what Operation Christmas Child was trying to do and thought, what a great idea. And so that year our students packed some boxes, the ladies Bible study packed some boxes, and Thanksgiving weekend we dedicated 72 shoeboxes to be sent to Operation Christmas Child for the glory of God, not knowing where they were going or what was going to happen. So I got on the phone, called the 800 number on the back of the brochure, and said, "I've got 72 shoeboxes. Where can they go?" And the lady at the other end said, "Well, you missed collection week. So you have two options. You can either mail them to us in Boone," which I don't know if you've ever looked at the shoeboxes that come in, but mailing 72 of those would have cost a lot of money. She said, "Or you can drive them to the nearest drop-off location, which would be at a processing center." And so I asked where that would be, and she said, "Well, the closest one to you is in Charlotte, North Carolina," which was 11 hours away. So after I hung up, I thought, well, these can't sit for a year. They've already been dedicated to the Lord. And we had a church dinner the following Sunday, and one of the young men that was there was a missionary who was on furlough. He was visiting from Korea. And I said, "Jeff, what do you have going on this week?" And he said, "Nothing." I said, "How would you like to make a trip to Charlotte?" And he said, "Well, when would you like to go?" I said, "How about right after dinner?" And so we loaded up the van with those 72 boxes and took the church van, and we started driving to Charlotte. We spent the night in Harrisonburg, Virginia, finished the trip ending up in Harrisburg, North Carolina, which is just north of Charlotte, at a Pepsi warehouse. And we walked in, and they had a lot of space in there, and there were about 8 volunteers, and they were going through the shoe boxes and preparing them for shipping. And as I looked around, the guys gave us a quick tour, and I said, "Well, could you use help with this?" And they said, "Well, I'm sure we could use some help. We just rely on local volunteers, and we make it happen." And at the time, they were collecting boxes that were numbered in the thousands, not the millions that they collect today. But as we were driving back from Charlotte back to central Pennsylvania, I shared with Jeff, there's got to be a way that we can be involved and help with this project. And I said, I think we need to look into maybe taking a group down here and helping, doing that as a mission trip. And so a couple of months later, after the first of the year, I met with my pastor, Reverend David Anderson, and shared with him my idea about taking a group of kids over Thanksgiving. And he looked at me and he said, "Tom, that's a great idea, but it'll never happen." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because there isn't a parent in the world that will let their kid go away at Thanksgiving." I said, "Okay." But he looked at me and he says, "But go ahead and try it and see what happens." I'm so glad we did. In March of that year, I called the 800 number again in Boone and said, "Hey, we'd like to bring a group down on a mission trip to help with the processing in Charlotte." I said, "Would we be able to do that?" And there was silence at the other end. I thought maybe we'd lost a connection. I said, "Are you still there?" And the lady said, "Yeah, I'm still here." She said, "I'm thinking." She said, "We've never had anybody ask us that before." And so she said, "Let me call you back." And about 15 minutes later, she called me back and she said, "Yeah, we'd love to have you, but we can't provide you with any lodging. We can't provide you with any food. We could just tell you when to show up to work." And I said, "That's all we need. We'll make the rest of it happen. It's a mission trip. We're coming to serve." And so we put it out there, and the first year we had a group of about a dozen people that went, high school leaders and students, and we went down and we had a great time, and God provided. He provided housing on the way down for us so that we didn't have to pay for housing. Then when we got there, a lady whose sister was a member of our church happened to live in Charlotte. And she was going to Dallas for Thanksgiving, and she opened up her home that we could stay in our home. She filled the kitchen and the refrigerator and the freezer with food for us. And so everything was falling into place. But we had no idea where the location was going to be, because where she lived was a long way from Harrisburg. But it was a new location. Turns out that location was about a mile from where we would be working in Pineville, North Carolina. And so we spent the first year there. We were the first out-of-town or out-of-state group to come in to work specifically as a mission trip with Operation Christmas Child. And boy, has that led to some great things. And we have seen the program grow. Like I said, we were counting in the thousands. Now we're counting in the millions. Just in Charlotte alone, over 2.5 million shoeboxes this year. And that's just one of 8 processing centers in the U.S. This year, they collected their 200 millionth shoebox gift. And these gifts are changing the world. They are changing children and their families one shoebox, one life at a time. One of my favorite stories, we were running a collection center in central Pennsylvania, and a woman came in off the street. It was a snowy night. It was cold. Her overcoat was covered with snow, and she was carrying one box. And she said to the lady that was taking them in, she said, I have one box. It's just one box. And there was a little child standing there, and he said, ma'am, that's not just one box. That's one child who will hear about the love of Jesus because you took the time to pack one box. What a powerful testimony. And the things that we think about that have changed lives. We've heard story after story of children who said the most impactful thing that was in their shoeboxes was pencils, because pencils allowed them to go to school. If they didn't have a pencil, they couldn't get an education. They weren't allowed to go to school. And having a box of pencils meant that they would have a secure education as they lived in their orphanages or wherever they happened to be. Story after story about God, how God has used these boxes in amazing ways. And as we've been through the processing center and worked in those processing lines now for 27 years, you look at some of the boxes and you go, what is going on with this? You know, what's God going to do with this? And yet God always finds a way. We heard a story of somebody who packed a graduation gown. Why would you pack a graduation cap and gown in a shoebox? But they just felt led by God to do it. Turns out the young lady that received that box was going to graduate. And she had lost everything she owned, including her graduation cap and gown, in a fire. Family couldn't afford another one. It was the right color and everything. God knew what that child needed. God knows what these children need before we ever do. But we take that empty box, we fill it with love and prayers, putting the things in that God lays on our heart to put in. And God uses those things to bring people to Him. So we've heard so many stories of children giving their lives to Jesus. Oftentimes, as they go through the Bible study that follows the distribution of gifts, the greatest journey. But we also hear of their families being so impacted that they want to learn about Christ. And entire families come to the Lord. You make that happen. And I just want to say thank you. Here at the Village Church, we've collected through the years over 10,000 shoeboxes. That's 10,000 lives impacted for Christ. And I've had the opportunity and the blessing to take dozens of you to work in the Charlotte Processing Center. We always go, we always have a great time, and we always come home more inspired with new ideas of things to pack for future years. I hope you'll consider being a part of our team next year. And know that as we pack boxes next year, you can begin anytime. Look for those sales, look for the bargains, look for things that God lays on your heart. Because these shoeboxes are making a difference. And now that we're done for 2022, keep praying. Pray for the safety of the workers who are going to be distributing these and sharing Christ. Pray for the children that are going to receive them. Pray for the people that work in customs that these will be able to get through without issues. Pray that God does what He will through these incredible, simple gifts. Thank you for making Operation Christmas Child go. I've been privileged to be a part of it from before the 100,000th box to now the 200 millionth box. And it's been quite a journey. But I can't wait to see the 300 millionth and hopefully the 400 millionth and beyond. Thanks again. You have a blessed week. I'll talk to you on Friday. I love you, church.